7 best footballers to play for 10 or more clubs. This is a video we recently saw suggested in the comments, and one we quite liked the sound of. Initially, I thought there'd be loads of players who have had 10 plus clubs, and that we might have to raise it to 12 or 13 to make things interesting, but as is so often the case, I was wrong. Take someone like Zlatan Ibrahimovic, who is 37 now and rarely sticks around at a club for long. Even he has only had 9 clubs, so 10 plus is quite an impressive haul. To make matters clear, it's 10 plus clubs, not 10 plus transfers. So if a player has 3 separate stints at a single club, and 8 other clubs, he may have had 10 plus transfers, but he hasn't played for 10 plus clubs. We are, however, including loan moves. Here are the 7 best footballers to have played for 10 plus clubs. 7. Luca Toni, a brilliant center-forward who really came alive in the penalty box. Luca Toni was often described as a bit of a throwback or old-school striker. Strong in the air and accurate with both feet, he could hold the ball up well and had a natural goal-scoring instinct. Having been most prolific during the mid-2000s with Fiorentina and Bayern Munich, he enjoyed a remarkable renaissance in his late 30s with Verona, even becoming Serie A's top scorer for only the second time in his career. Now aged 41, Toni only hung up his boots 2 years ago, and Verona were the 2006 World Cup winners' 15th club. 6. Chris Waddle, ex-Newcastle player and media pundit. Chris Waddle looks on during the Barclays Premier League match between Newcastle United and Liverpool at St James Park on November 1, 2014. A rare free spirit and creative midfield technician within English football during the 1980s and early 1990s, Chris Waddle is a seemingly somewhat underrated footballer. A 2-time PFA Team of the Year inclusion and 1-time Tottenham Player of the Year during his time with Tottenham and Newcastle United, Waddle went on to join that rare group of British footballers to enjoy success overseas. The England international became a big hit in France with Marseille, where he won 3 league titles in 3 seasons, before returning to England with Sheffield Wednesday. Waddle later turned out for a string of non-league clubs, taking his total list of clubs to 14. 5. Jari Litmanen, a supremely talented footballer who enjoyed his greatest successes early in his career. Jari Litmanen later became something of a journeyman. Finland's greatest contribution to the world of football, Litmanen was a fantastic technician who scored and created goals prolifically. He played his best football for Ajax in the mid-1990s, where he won the Champions League and once scored 36 goals in a single season from midfield. He later turned out for Barcelona and Liverpool, but injuries restricted his contribution. He played for exactly 10 clubs. 4. Christian Vieri kicks the ball during Andrea Pirlo farewell match at Stadio Giuseppe Meazza on May 21, 2018 in Milan, Italy. Subscribers to this channel will most likely know that I am a big fan of Christian Vieri, since I've shared my thoughts on him a couple of times before. At his best, Vieri was among the most devastating strikers in my lifetime. He was bullish, powerful and predatory. You knew you weren't going to get a moment's rest as a defender up against Christian Vieri. Sadly, however, as with Litmanen, Vieri was very injury-prone. Most prolific during his time with Inter Milan and his single season with Atletico Madrid, where he averaged better than a goal a game, Vieri played for a grand total of 14 clubs. 3. Rivaldo. The top 3 players in this 7 all featured in our recent look at the 100 greatest footballers of all time, starting with Brazilian maestro Rivaldo. Another widely underrated footballer, on his day, Rivaldo was perhaps the most unstoppable player on the planet. Capable of changing a game in an instant, the bandy-legged Brazilian had explosive technique, real creativity and a remarkable rate of goal scoring during his peak at Barcelona. In many respects, Rivaldo's willingness to go on in football, as he tumbled down the footballing pyramid and turned out in nations as far-flung as Uzbekistan and Angola, somewhat detracted from his legacy as a truly world-class footballer, and undoubtedly one of the greatest of his generation. He too played for a total of 14 different clubs. 2. George Best. Manchester United player George Best during a match against Northampton Town, UK, 7th of February 1970. There seems to be a link between extremely talented footballers who are either slight mavericks or injury-prone and have relatively short peaks and players who turn out for a number of clubs, at least if this 7 is anything to go by. In terms of peak performance level and an early demise, there is no finer example than the man in second place in this 7. George Best had won it all in his early 20s, but he was done before he'd even reached his late 20s. Having been a one-club man in his prime at Manchester United, Best subsequently made 17 transfers in just 10 years. Since he had 2 spells with the Los Angeles Aztecs, Best played for a total of 17 clubs. 0. Honorable mentions. The player who probably came closest to making this 7 is former Newcastle United, Manchester United and England striker Andy Cole, who played for 12 different clubs and is the third highest scorer in the Premier League since 1992. Another former Premier League striker, Nicolas Anelka, made our short list. A really gifted and complete centre-forward, Anelka had an impressive career, but he was always a bit of a journeyman, also turning out for 12 clubs in total. Lastly, we'll give an honorable mention to Frank Worthington, who was a genius at his best, and played for a whopping 24 different clubs. We've no doubt you'll have your own suggestions, so make sure to let us know in the comments, as well as any future video ideas you may have. Before that though, it is time for Top Spot. 1. Romário. Brazilian former football star Romário looks on during a charity football match organized by former Brazilian national team player Zico, at Maracanã Stadium on December 28, 2013 in Rio de. There will no doubt be those in the comments who are outraged by Romário coming in ahead of George Best, but the Brazilian ranked higher than him in our 100 GOATs video, so he was hardly not going to today. Romário also had a bit of a playboy lifestyle. He hated training, he was perennially lazy and almost unbearably arrogant. However, Romário was so good, and his arrogance so justified, that despite all those flaws, he spent the best part of 2 decades as one of the best players on the planet. Romário spent much of his career playing outside of Europe, but he was absolutely sensational when he did play in the continent for both PSV and Barcelona, as well as being more prolific than Ronaldo for Brazil. A deserved first place in this 7, Romário played for a total of 10 clubs, retiring for good in 2009, aged 43.